What level are you at in your marriage? Stay tuned and find out. You're listening to Inspire Me with Jay, where science meets spirit and stories of meditation and the near death experience awaken what's possible within us all. I'm Jay, and this is your moment to be inspired. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, Jay Spillers, and we're going to be talking about marriage today, the different levels or phases that individuals and couples find themselves at. You're probably familiar with the scripture that talks about wives submitting to their husbands and husbands loving their wives. And it's found in a few places in scripture, such as Ephesians chapter 5. Now, most people don't have too much problem with the husbands love their wife part. That part, most people are pretty cool with. It's that wives submitting part that gets people kind of riled up. And I think there's really three levels that people find themselves in marriage with this kind of thing. The first one is where you're sort of in the rebellion domination stage, where you're basically rebelling against the whole concept of submission in marriage, particularly, husbands or wives to husbands, or you're trying to dominate, because it's some like sometimes women will be upset about things like, oh, I got to submit, or I don't think I should. But then husbands can also misuse it too and be like, well, you're not submitting to me, and try to use that as a domination tactic, because first off, if you're married and you're using the scriptures as a weapon to try to force someone to do something, like, wife, you need to be submitting to me, you're probably already off base anyway. You're probably not as spiritually mature as you might think you are. Just keep that in mind. If you're a husband in that sense, you should be focused on loving. Let her focus on what she needs to focus on. Okay, so that's the first stage, is the rebellion domination stage. Rebelling against the concept or trying to use the concept to dominate. And so that's the first stage. The second stage is what we call the role stage, where we basically embrace the idea of, okay, I'm the wife, I'm going to submit to my husband. I'm the husband, I'm going to love my wife. And this is the second phase. And it can be a very beautiful phase that people can live in. And this is more of the traditional idea. It's like you hear a concept called complementarianism today in a lot of churches where, okay, the wife has her role and the husband has his role. And there's other ways of describing it too. Some people talk about patriarchy, where the man is the head and the wife submits and all of that. It's kind of the same concept, basically, this complementarian. You got your role, I got my role. We're all equal in worth and dignity, but we got our roles here. And this can work out well. There many Christian communities do this. The Amish do it, the Mennonites do it, a lot of more conservative fundamental Christians do it. There's some Reformed churches that do it. It can work out just fine. So the thing is when I see this, it's level two. There is a higher level, but I don't really criticize people that are on level two if they're doing level two as it's supposed to be, because what is submission? Well, when you look in Ephesians, there's basically two aspects to it. One is I yield my will to another. And the second aspect, when you read down to the latter part of Ephesians, is respect. So when we talk about submission, we're talking about the aspect of yielding to another and then respecting. So you kind of have both aspects there. And this can work out perfectly fine. But then there's a third level that many never get to. And some get to it sort of unknowingly. And this is called moving from the roles level to the mutuality level. And in this role, and in this phase, excuse me, um, we have mutuality to love, to submission, to respect. And so we have both parties mutually loving each other, mutually respecting each other, and sometimes mutually submitting to each other. Like, I know this is important to her, so I will yield and put her first here. Or she knows this is important to me, she will yield to me in this area. So there's sort of a mutual give and take submission going on, yielding going on. And what I like to say is that the Bible is written to people on different levels. So, it's going to be addressing people that are seeking to dominate and seeking to rebel and saying, yeah, you really shouldn't do that. Phase one, really work on getting to a higher level than that, because that's not really a great level. The domination rebellion stage of level one, it's not really a spiritually mature level. You want to move beyond that. So there's scriptures that you can find all over the place that talk about how domination not good, and rebellion against the things of God not good. Okay, so then we move into level two, and there's scriptures that talk about that in various places. Paul talks about it a lot, and people get on level two, and that's great, but they don't realize that there's actually another level, because you can find scriptures that essentially teach the mutuality principle. Like there's scriptures in the Gospels that talks about, and then in the epistles as well, that talk about putting others first, putting others before yourself. And this can obviously be talking in a marriage, can be talking in a more general sense too, that we should always have the heart and the attitude to put others first. So that principle is taught in scripture. There's also, ironically, in Ephesians, before it gets to wives submitting to their husbands, there's a mutual submission, submit one to another, that's being taught. So right in that same chapter, we have level two, level three being mentioned. Okay, if you're ready for level three, let's do some mutual submission. Let's put the other first. Okay. But if you're not quite at level three, let's at least do level two. Wives, submit to your husbands. Okay. So you kind of see both going on, both different levels being taught in scripture, you know. And there are other scriptures about husbands showing reverence to their wife. Like Peter talks about, show your wife reverence or respect. There's another scripture where it talks about the older women teaching the younger women to love their husbands. So the idea of mutuality in love, husband and wife, the idea of mutuality of respect, and the idea of mutuality of submission, putting the other first, yielding sometimes to the other, is taught in scripture too. So the mutuality principle is there. So this is sort of the third or higher level. And a lot of times when you see a strong friendship in marriage, the mutuality just kind of flows naturally. It's not something that we have to kind of like fight to get to. We find ourselves kind of there, You know, it's something that just flows naturally. A lot of times when we're in a friendship in marriage, that there's sort of the give and take. Like I yield to her on this, she yields to me on that. We show each other respect, we show each other love, and it just sort of flows. It's not like something like we got to sit there and like, you know, hit our heads trying to make this work. It just kind of flows. And I think that's one of the best things is that when you can lay a marriage foundation on a friendship, that's really the best way to go. Because you look at what are the best marriages out there, whether inside or outside the church, the best marriages out there are the ones built on a friendship. It's like, and I think most people would intuitively see that that's true. It's if you could, even before you start dating someone, lay the foundation of a friendship where, you meet someone, a guy or a girl, and you're like, can we just be friends first for a few months, sort of lay that foundation, put aside the pressures to be romantic and all of that, and let's just be friends. So it's like before you're my honey, maybe you're going to be my buddy, and that seems to work out quite well, because I think that's one reason why childhood sweethearts tend to do so well. Yes, they grow up together, but because they start off as children, they're not really at the romantic stage. So where are they going to be with each other? Friends, they're children, but they're friends. Before they ever even get to the romantic stage, they're friends. I think that's why childhood sweethearts work out so well. I mean, obviously, most of us didn't meet our spouse in childhood, but it lays a principle down that if you could start at a friendship first, and obviously, if you're already married, work at building a friendship now, because if everything hits the fan and things go bad, if you've got a friendship to fall on, you've got a strong foundation to probably weather things and make it through. Now, a lot of people will think, okay, well, I'm on level 3. We do the mutuality when they're really not. They think they're on level 3 doing mutual love, mutual submission, mutual respect, but they're really on level 1, because maybe they don't verbalize it, but they're really still trying to dominate, or they're really still trying to rebel against, the principles of submission. So make sure that if you're trying to do level 3, that you're on level 3 and not level 1. And if you're on level 2, not ready to go to level 3, that's fine, but just know that it's there and try to build the friendship so the mutuality will be present. Now, it's interesting too, is that a lot of people say, well, will the scriptures be fulfilled? Will a wife be submitting to her husband? Will a husband be loving his wife on level 3? And the answer is absolutely yes. A husband will be loving his wife, but it will be mutual. A wife will be submitting and respecting her husband, but it will be occurring in a mutual fashion. So the scriptures is fulfilled. There's no problem there. You're meeting the fulfillment of scripture, submission and love, respect, all of that, but you're doing it in a mutual fashion. And this is, I think, conceptually maybe, like new to some people, but it kind of makes sense when you sit down and think about it. If you're operating at the mutual level, I'm already mutually yielding at times, submitting. I'm already mutually respecting. I'm already mutually loving. Well, we got everything covered, don't we? We got the submission and the love and the respect all going on. It's just flowing in a mutual fashion. And sometimes as you start to elevate your game, even if your spouse isn't quite there yet, he or she will start to elevate their game, you know. And sometimes taking the first step to be like, okay, well, so I'm the wife. I'll go ahead and submit and yield, but I'll do so out of a heart of love. That may sometimes touch his heart, and he may mutually yield back on some other things in a heart of love. And that's another point of mutuality, too, is that to truly yield or submit needs to come from a heart of love. To truly respect someone must come from a heart of love. So they are intertwined in that sense. To love is to respect is to love.
You're listening to the Inspire Me with Jay podcast. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, bringing hope and inspiration to the world.
Now, some of you might be wondering, why is there a greater emphasis on respect for women, that women have respect for their husbands, and a greater emphasis on love that men are supposed to have towards their wives? Why do you think that is? Well, I think probably the reason is women tend to have a greater need to feel loved. Men have a need to feel respected. Now, this obviously doesn't mean we don't need both, because everyone needs to feel respected, everyone needs to feel loved. But in a general sense, and psychology seems to bear this out, respect is a little more important for the man to have. Love is a little more important for the woman to feel. So I think that's probably why there's a bit more emphasis on one or the other for the two sexes. Women need to feel the love, men need to feel respected. So I hope that you enjoyed this discussion. I find it very interesting. A lot of people might find it thought-provoking. And I'll see you next time.